to the term population protection through mass immunization. Kasi po yung ating herd immunity, marami pong mga kaakibat na mga criteria. We are considering the variant kasi ngayon hindi pa natin alam kung kailangan ng mga booster shots at saka yung mga ibang bakuna ay na-address pa yung ating mga variants.
That's Health Undersecretary Mirna Kabutahe explaining government's lowered immunization goal, which he says is also tied to available vaccine supply in the country.
Health officials, meanwhile, have different views on whether to allocate the bulk of the vaccine supply to high-risk areas such as Metro Manila. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with health officials recalibrating its vaccination goals yet again.
Instead of herd immunity, the government is now aiming at a closer target, population protection. Arian Calumbiran has the big story.
Back in March, the government's goal was to reach herd immunity by December for a happy Christmas. That's 70 million vaccinated Filipinos before the year ends. But come mid-May, that has been recalibrated to herd containment, which means the government has to vaccinate 25 million by September and 50 to 70 million by November. But just this week, the DOH said they're abandoning the herd immunity goal altogether. The new target thereafter now is population protection.
Kasi po yung ating herd immunity, marami pong mga kaakibat na mga criteria. We are considering the variant. Kasi ngayon, hindi pa natin alam kung kailangan ng mga booster shots.
The goal of population protection is to prevent deaths and hospitalization. This involves inoculating 50 to 60% of the population with a focus in NCR+.
If the supply will be good and the global market will improve, we will be able to give more and reach our initial target na 70 million by end of this year.
In a Laging Handa briefing, Health Secretary Francisco Duque said 67% of current vaccine allocation goes to the NCR plus 8 regions.
Yung mga binabantayan natin na mataas ang kaso kada araw o yung average daily attack rate at mataas ang healthcare utilization rate, yan ang mga pamantayan o basihan ng ating pagbibigay ng mas malaking porsyento ng bakuna.
Octa research says reaching 40 to 50% of NCR Plus residents alone would require as much as 35 million vaccines. That translates to a monthly supply requirement of 5 to 6 million doses.
So a realistic target is 40 to 50%. Pero okay na yan because if we achieve that, we get containment and we can have full economic recovery with containment.
But Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere isn't keen on allocating most of the country's vaccine supply to NCR+. She tells One News the Chiefs this move is inequitable.
Pero we cannot set aside the other areas also. We can see also cases rising in other areas aside from these highly populous areas.
Vergere said the agency can still consider the proposal but only when vaccine supply in the country is already stable. Arian Calumbiran, we are One News.
To talk more about population protection, we have with us epidemiologist Eric Tayag of the DOH. Dr. Tayag, welcome to the big story.
Robbie, good evening. Thanks.
Dr. Tayag, ulitin lang po natin, ano pong pagkakaiba nitong population protection? Also, in the past weeks, we also heard about herd containment relative or different to herd immunity. Pareho po ba yung herd containment sa population protection? And what's the difference with herd immunity?
Okay, first of all, there is just this concept of herd immunity. It is a concept wherein if there are enough people who got sick and recovered, and so therefore they have some protection against another second course of illness, and add to this enough or more people who get vaccinated, so both of them are immune, and the rest of the population who are neither vaccinated nor got sick or recovered, then this population is now protected, and we would see a slowing down of the spread of the virus. And that means we're going to break the chain of transmission. That's the concept of herd immunity. So that means that people who don't get vaccinated will be protected. They will be protected by proxy because the other people got vaccinated.
Apa.
Robbie, that's it.
Ano po,
So
ano po
herd
pagka-
immunity is not containment. Containment is not herd immunity. Okay, and the concept is only on herd immunity.
And this term that we're now being introduced to, population protection, what does that mean?
Herd immunity is itself protecting the population. It's like this, Robbie. If an individual gets vaccinated, that individual gets protected against COVID-19. And if more people gets vaccinated, then there is a silver lining to this. People who don't get the vaccine will be protected simply because more people got vaccinated. And who are these people? Maybe these are the people who refuse vaccination. These are the people who are too old to get vaccinated or too young to get vaccinated. And so they get protection even though they did not get any vaccine because now the thing is, what's the key percentage, or that's the herd threshold that would tell us that enough people have been vaccinated, so those who remain susceptible will not get the infection. So it varies from contagious diseases to another contagious diseases. But for COVID-19, it's placed at 67%. That means 2/3 of the population should be vaccinated. So if we have 110 million population in the Philippines, that means around 73 million should be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. But there's a catch, Robbie. So how fast you get to that number is critical because vaccines will have different rates of what we say decline in their
Okay.
protection
Okay, so-
because antibodies wane. Yeah.
Okay, so Doc, we do appreciate DOH and health experts educating the public basically on all of this. Therefore, ang tanong na lang po is it accurate the way it's being reported that this is a revision in targets, or is that not necessarily how we should frame this whole discussion?
I think the context from the statements of Undersecretary Cabotaje just is meant to encourage people to get vaccinated as soon as the vaccines are available in the country. Because the idea is the more people get protected because of the vaccines, then we can somehow slow down the spread of the virus before it incarnates into other variants, and this will complicate matters to achieve herd immunity.
Okay, Dr. Eric Tareg, maraming salamat po. Senior citizens, meanwhile, are being urged to go get vaccinated as vaccine take-up remains low in the age group. Tonight's big number is 11%. That's the rate of people aged 60 and above who received COVID shots since March, according to Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez. Galvez noted that the elderly account for at least 60% of total COVID deaths. About 3.5 million Filipinos have received their first dose, while at least 1 million Filipinos are already fully vaccinated.
These are the other big stories tonight. The Food and Drug Administration is looking to expand the use of Pfizer vaccines for children aged 12 to 15. This is after positive results from inoculation of the same age group abroad. President Duterte wants barangay officials who fail to enforce mass gathering restrictions arrested. This is after reports of social gatherings left unchecked in several areas in Metro Manila. And a shooting at a rail yard in California leaves 8 persons dead, including 1 Filipino. These big stories after the break.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. The Philippines has yet to include children and teenagers in its COVID-19 vaccination program, but that matter may just be around the corner as health experts note Pfizer's efficacy in the age group based on studies abroad. Jen Calimon with this story.
Anna Vitug, a mother of 3, makes sure basic health protocols are being followed even inside their home. She says this is for the safety of her children during this pandemic.
Hanggat maaari po, hindi po muna kami nagyayakapan or kiss. Para
Pero,
sigurado din.
opo.
Ava has already registered for vaccination against COVID-19, but she hopes COVID shots will also be available to her children. At the very least, for her 12-year-old daughter, Hailey, her wish may soon come true. The Food and Drug Administration looks to amend the emergency use authorization of Pfizer vaccines so that minors aged 12 to 15 may be inoculated. United States, United Arab Emirates, and Canada recently started administering Pfizer doses to this age group. Top-line results from clinical trials showed 100% efficacy among participants with or without prior COVID infection, as well as robust antibody responses. Adverse reactions also said to be well tolerated.
I already got the recommendations of our experts and it's very favorable. So within the week po, we will be issuing an amendment to the emergency use authorization of Pfizer.
But for the health department, inoculation for teenagers may not happen anytime soon. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III says vaccine supplies are still insufficient, which means high-risk groups still need to be prioritized.
Dahil kulang na nga tayo, dapat ay talagang itulak natin ang mabilisan bakunahan para sa mga senior citizens, no? A2 and A3, no? At A1 naman halos kompleto na tayo. Ang kailangan natin ngayon, A2. Yan ang kinakailangan talaga isulong natin dahil diyan po galing ang mga na-ospital na talagang sila po ang nabibiktima ng nakamamatay na komplikasyon.
Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte warns local officials demanding exclusive supply of Pfizer vaccines.
When you begin to be selective, the others will also begin to be agitated about the potency na pareho naman sana sa iba. They will also demand Pfizer. How about the other Filipinos from the Visayas to Mindanao?
Duterte previously ordered LGUs not to announce vaccine brands ahead of inoculation to push a brand-agnostic policy. Over 1 million Filipinos have so far been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 since the vaccine rollout began. Reporting for News 5, Jen Calimon, We Are One News.
President Duterte has ordered police to arrest barangay captains should they be caught violating quarantine guidelines set by the IATF in their respective jurisdictions. This comes amid recent reports of mass gatherings in several areas in Metro Manila. The president said PNP officers may use reasonable force if violators resist arrest. The Interior Department supports the move. They say it's about time further violations are penalized.
Tama lang na isang taon na kasi tayo dito. Hindi na pwedeng puro tayo patawad sa ating mamamayan dahil kada patawad natin, nadadagdagan ang biktima ng COVID, mas lalong lumalaki ang gastos ng Pilipinas.
DOH says the NCR Plus area has already met parameters to ease restrictions. In an interview with the chiefs, DOH Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere says the DOH has been working to increase capacity of LGUs to respond to COVID-19 and mitigate spikes in cases. This is so that NCR Plus can safely reopen instead of prolonging quarantine restrictions. Vergere assured that safety measures will be in place should the NCR Plus shift to MGQ.
Time for an extra's look at some of the day's big stories. The lower house moves a step closer to final approval of economic amendments to the 1987 Charter. Economic Cha-Cha passed second reading at the lower house. This measure seeks to relax constitutional limits on foreign investments in the country to boost economic recovery amid the pandemic. Palace says that President Duterte is leaving it to God on whether or not he would run for vice president in the 2022 national elections. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo recently raised the possibility that a strong public clamor might convince Duterte to run for VP in 2022. And the Health Department warns against self-swabbing. That's after actor Robin Padilla uploaded a video conducting the test himself. DOH Secretary Francisco Duque emphasized swab tests may only be done by healthcare professionals. Time for another quick break. When we return, the impeachment complaint against Supreme Court Associate Justice Marvic Leonen goes down the drain after a unanimous decision by the House Committee on Justice. And the latest in a series of deadly mass shootings in the United States, a California transit employee fired at 8 of his co-workers, including one Filipino. President Joe Biden calls it a horrific tragedy.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. A House panel swiftly dismissed what it called baseless impeachment complaints against Supreme Court Associate Justice Marvic Leonen. The panel says its decision cannot be overturned. How did the voting go? Marian Enriquez tells us in this report.
With a vote of 44-0, the House Committee on Justice has swiftly dismissed the impeachment complaint filed against Supreme Court Associate Justice Marvic Leonen. The members of the panel said that Edwin Cordevilla, Secretary General of the Filipino League of Advocates for Good Government, lacked personal knowledge and authentic documents for his complaint.
The complaint, Mr. Chairman, is undeniably purely hearsay. And the rules of evidence would say that hearsay evidence could not stand in any proceeding.
Leonen was accused of committing culpable violation of the Constitution for failing to dispose of at least 37 cases within 24 months. He was also accused of dragging his feet on several cases as chairperson of the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal. Leonen also supposedly committed betrayal of public trust after failing to file his statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALINs, for 15 years. But Albay Representative Edsa Lagman said Leonen's failure to submit his SALINs happened before he was appointed Associate Justice in 2012.
An impeachable incumbent official should only be impeached for offenses committed during his incumbency.
The panel says there's no overturning the decision and that the one-year ban for complaints against Leonin applies. According to the House Rules of Impeachment, the Justice Committee shall return the complaint to the Secretary General within 3 session days. They will also have to pass a committee report of its dismissal to the plenary. For Justice Leonin, the swift dismissal of the impeachment complaint only proves its baselessness. With this, House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco says the Congress may now set their sights back on legislation. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Manila police have already arrested a female motorist who was caught on camera hitting a traffic enforcer in Malate.
Taka kasi lisensya, ma'am eh. Oh.
Police identified the driver as Pauline Salamero, 26 years old, from Calamba, Laguna. Salamero will face charges for direct assault and driving without license. Manila traffic enforcer Marcos Meneses initially flagged Salamero down along Osmeña Highway for disregarding traffic signs. She then hurled expletives at Meneses, struck him, and even grabbed him by his uniform.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. PDP Laban Acting President Senator Manny Pacquiao tells his party mates to disregard their Vice Chairman Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi's call for a National Assembly on May 31. In a memorandum, Pacquiao strongly advised PDP Laban members to ignore Cusi's invitation. He says this was not sanctioned by national party officers and is against the party's constitution. Cusi has yet to comment on Pacquiao's memo. Moody's Analytics expects either a slight economic contraction or flat growth in the second quarter based on the country's current COVID-19 situation. Chief economist for Asia Pacific Stephen Cochran tells Business World Live that recovery is likely by the second half of the year if vaccine rollout goes as planned and if strict lockdowns are lifted. Moody's says the Philippine economy may only return to pre-pandemic levels by 2022. And this from News 5. President Duterte has signed into law the measure splitting Maguindanao into 2 areas. Maguindanao will now have northern and southern Maguindanao provinces. The president also declared the city of Davao as the chocolate capital of the Philippines and the Davao region as the country's cacao capital.
And here are the other big stories from around the world. A California transit employee killed 8 co-workers, including 1 Filipino, before taking his own life. The Filipino victim was identified as 42-year-old Paul de la Cruz Mejia. The shooting took place at a light rail yard near San Jose City's main airport. This is the latest in a spate of deadly mass shootings in the United States. This has prompted California's governor to ask, what the hell is wrong with us? U.S. President Joe Biden called the attack a horrific tragedy. After Cyclone T, another powerful cyclone named Yas has barreled into eastern India. This as the country continues to deal with a devastating surge in new COVID cases. Over 1 million people have been evacuated due to Cyclone Yas, which also forced suspension of COVID-19 vaccinations in the area.
Now for the big story in sports. Gilas Pilipinas 3x3 saw its chances of reaching the Tokyo Olympics get slimmer following 2 losses in the FIBA 3x3 Olympic qualifying tournament in Graz, Austria. Gilas 3x3 kicked off their campaign with a 21-12 defeat to Qatar. And just a few hours later, Gilas suffered another loss in the hands of powerhouse Slovenia, 21-11. Team Philippines will have to sweep its remaining matches and hope for losses on the part of France and Qatar to advance to the knockout round. And in tennis, 4-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka said she will not take questions from the press at this year's French Open. Posting on her social media accounts, Osaka said the nature of news conferences puts undue burden on players' mental health. The world number 2 said the decision was nothing personal. Osaka hopes tournaments would reconsider their approach.
The test is ready. Rachel wrote Ross a letter and demanded he read it before they got
Oh
back together.
my
Pages of
God!
that letter.
Friends The Reunion is finally streaming on HBO Max. Hashtag Friends Reunion was the Philippines' top Twitter trending topic the moment the one-off special went live. Hours before the premiere, Friends held a virtual red carpet, which featured guest stars and excerpts from the series. Friends The Reunion has lived up to expectations. The iconic 6 cast members recounted their fondest memories on set and reflected on the show's impact in their careers and personal lives. They also reenacted some of the funniest scenes and played games. Of course, A-list personalities joined in on the fun. James Corden also interviewed the cast in front of the iconic fountain from the opening credits. One of the bittersweet questions was if the Friends stars would reprise their roles in a new series or a movie. Apparently, they believe they've ended the show very nicely. Time to do away with being floopy. It's already time to grow up. Nick Garcia, We Are One News.
Several countries have been creative in their inoculation campaigns, from offering free booze to several perks in dating apps. Magpapatalo ba mga Pinoy? Camille Samonte tells us how certain LGUs are trying to persuade constituents to get the jab.
Michelle is always exposed to a lot of people as she manages her own small store in her neighborhood. She knows the danger of contracting COVID-19 due to crowding and poor observance of protocols.
Natatakot ako. Hindi ako sigurado sa sa kaligtasan. Baka may mga side effect.
Vaccine star Carlito Galvez said many residents of poor communities are hesitant to get vaccinated. With this, some LGUs are now offering raffle prizes for vaccinees. In Barangay Sucat, Muntinlupa City, 20 residents could win a 25-kilogram sack of rice. Those who got their first dose can already join the raffle as they only need to present their vaccination card. They will draw the raffle every Sunday and announce the winners online.
Nababagalan kami at gusto natin na mapabilis yung pace ng vaccination process. Kaya nag-isip kami ng isang ideya o gimmick na pwede namin silang ma-hit. No? Sila yung kadalasan yung indigent. No?
Some residents appreciated their LGU's effort in enticing them to get the jabs.
Masaya at protektado naman, baka may chance pa ako manalo.
Over in San Luis, Pampanga, the LGU is raffling off a cow every month. Mayor Jason Sagum believes this will somehow help them achieve a 100% vaccination rate.
May problem tayo dun sa yung vaccine hesitancy ng mga Pilipino. Ma-attain ko yung objective ko, naisip ako ng strategy.
Interior Secretary Eduardo Año suggested free rides to vaccination sites as well. In a previous interview with One News Now, DOST's Dr. Jaime Montoya noted that other countries are also incentivizing vaccination.
We want really to achieve herd immunity at the soonest time possible. So we have to do everything possible in order to make this happen.
For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
Ano pa ba gagawin natin to convince everybody, di ba?
This is probably the funnest part.
Pero ito, this is not necessarily fun. We're talking about incentives. May disincentive din, ha? Kasi kahapon, I was listening to this forum by Asia Society Philippines. Nandun yung founder ng Binalot. He talked about how he convinced his driver. Kinausap niya yung driver niya. Pero yung driver na yon, kinonvince yung driver nung kapatid nung executive. Alam mo sinabi niya?
Ano sinabi?
Sinabi niya sa kapwa driver niya, alam mo ba, pagka ikaw namatay sa COVID, but this is serious. Sinabi niya, pagka ikaw namatay sa COVID, pagka kayo namatay sa COVID, hindi ka man lang makikita ng pamilya mo.
Oo nga naman.
Kaya cremate ka na, iiwan mo yung pamilya mong ganun.
Nag-iisip kasi ako kasi yung daddy ko ayaw pa magpabakuna eh. So iniisip ko kung i-incentivize ko siya or disincentivize.
Both. Whatever gets people to get vaccinated.
Para ayaw pa kasi niya ako umuwi ng bahay. Well, tomorrow we will be seeing our athletes. They will be getting vaccinated. Our Tokyo-bound athletes, SEA Games athletes. Abangan niyo po ang report natin tungkol dyan. And later on, catch Friends replay HBO 9 p.m. Nagmamadali na po kami. That wraps up today's Big Story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.